today, a group of experienced former FBI and CIA officials have sent a memo to President Obama warning that Israel may bomb Iran as early as this month. Joining me to help discuss this is one of the men behind the memo, former CIA analyst Ray McGovern. So, Ray, first of all, tell me a little bit more of why you guys are making that prediction. Why specifically do you think something will happen this month?
Well, there are a host of reasons. They're mostly circumstantial. But the most important one has to do with what impression Prime Minister Netanyahu got of our president when he was here 3 weeks ago. Our president didn't dare to mention any of the contentious issues between our two countries, like our objection to the illegal settlements in the West Bank, or the killing of a U.S. citizen on board of the Mavi Marmara. And instead, it was very much a kind of a love fest with our president pretty much fawning all over Netanyahu. Now, Netanyahu is a pretty clever guy, and when he got home to Tel Aviv, I'm sure he told his colleagues that, you know, these Americans are just like we always thought of them. They're easily moved, as he said 9 years ago in a surreptitiously videoed conversation. They're easily moved. 80% of the Americans support us. This is bizarre. Those were his words. So that's the key factor. If he thinks that Obama would not have the courage to oppose a military strike on Iran, then you look around for the time to do it. Well, one of the things here is the fact that Congress has sent people to Tel Aviv and has introduced legislation approving explicitly a military attack on Iran, okay, for Israel. Senator Lindsey Graham said, you Israelis should know that we've got your back. Well, that's all Netanyahu needs.
And talk a little bit more specifically about motivation here. What would Israel gain by attacking Iran?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very clear that Israel has set out a policy to get rid of any hostile regimes with any power in the Middle East. Worked pretty well with Iraq, didn't it? The removal of Saddam Hussein. Of course, there are more terrorists there than ever before, but they got rid of Hussein. In their basic document, a clean break, securing the realm, back in 1996, when Netanyahu was his first prime minister, it was stated explicitly that Iran would be right on that list. Now, if they can get rid of Ahmadinejad and the mullahs, then that would be creating what they consider to be a super safe region there. Right. And so it amounts to that. And most people get confused by the diversionary argument that Israel is fearing an existential threat from Iranian nuclear bombs. Well, Iran doesn't have any nuclear bombs, and if it got one or two, Israel has 200, 300. So that stretches the imagination. What they want is regime change.
Right.
That's their motivation. It's not fear of...
Yeah, I found that to be an interesting point in the memo as well. And one thing you guys also talked about is the U.S. involvement in a potential conflict. And, you know, you guys are saying that the United States would have to help out with weaponry and troops, and it would ultimately lead to the destruction of Israel. Why do you think that would be the ultimate outcome of all of this? Well,
because Iran isn't Iraq. Iran has incredible military capabilities, and it has appreciable terrorist capabilities. So if Israel was to strike Iran, I think everyone in this town would agree that Iran would strike back if it was a material strike, a major strike. And then Israel couldn't finish the job. Then they would come to Netanyahu. Maybe it would be that 4 o'clock in the morning call to Barack Obama, Mr. President, we're in a little bit deeper than we thought. We're only able to destroy half of what Iran has. Please help us. We're going to make a public appeal for you to help us tomorrow.
Why are you so convinced that the United States would get involved, though? You know, back in 1956, the United States managed to kind of stay out of it and, you know, didn't back Israel. Why is this time different, in your opinion?
That's a good point. In '56, we had President Eisenhower as president. He had a lot of guts, and he faced down the Israelis and the British and the French in a very, very uncommon way. That hasn't been done since. And no one expects Barack Obama to do that the way he has been adopting this supine posture toward Israel.
And so obviously you guys sent this memo to President Obama. How are you hoping he responds? Do you think he's actually going to read it? He's a busy guy.
Well, he's got, he's got the stagecoaches surrounding him. He's got a kind of a Praetorian guard. And that was very much the way it was with President Bush. We couldn't get a hearing, nor would Joe Biden, who was head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee at the time, let us testify before Iraq. So we're hoping that this will get out so much out in the public, and we're depending on the media to do this, so that people will say, well, what's going on here? You know, is Iran a threat to the United States? And the answer to that is what Hillary Clinton said. No. Then who's it a threat to? Well, the threat to Israel? Well, compare the arsenals in each country, and you can't come away. So what does Israel want? It wants regime change. There's one other factor I should mention, and that is that there was a national intelligence estimate in November of 2007, which said, and I'll read it to you, we judge with high confidence that in the fall of 2003, Iran halted its nuclear weapons program. 2003. That's not what Bush and Cheney were saying.
Right.
So that's 2007, the estimate, and it's being updated. Okay?
Right.
Now, my contacts tell me that the update will say, good news, still no movement on that. And Netanyahu would very much like to preempt that. So there's some incentive for him to move before he's told once again, wouldn't see anything happening on the nuclear weapons side.
Well, it was definitely a fascinating memo to read, and of course we'll continue to follow this and see if President Obama does in fact respond to what you guys have written. That was former CIA analyst Ray McGovern. Thanks so much.
Thank you.